welcome to this TV9 special Samajhdar Bano, Sehat ke Ishare Samjho, and this is in collaboration with USV, your reliable healthcare partner, and also Halt Heart Attack. And in today's special show, viewers, we are talking about something that touches every Indian home, every family, and every single generation. Because in our busy lives, we often rush through days without noticing the one thing that keeps us alive, our heart. And the painful truth is that our hearts are weakening long before we feel anything. High cholesterol, a number of us ignore, is silently harming more than 8 out of 10 Indians every single day. And it doesn't warn us. It doesn't create any noise. It simply slips in quietly and blocks the heart, changing lives in an instant. This is not a problem of age, weight, or even fitness for that matter. It affects students under stress, professionals juggling through deadlines, parents who put everyone else first, and elderly who quietly endure discomfort. But the most hopeful part is that this danger is completely preventable if we understand it in time. And to guide us, we are joined by three of India's most respected cardiology experts who have seen how silent numbers turn into sudden emergencies and how simple awareness can save lives. Please welcome Dr. Bagirath Raghuraman, Senior Consultant Cardiology and Director of Heart Transplant at Narayana Institute of Cardiac Sciences in Bengaluru. Dr. Krutik Kulkarni, Head and Senior Interventional Cardiologist at Olive Hospital, Hyderabad. And Dr. Surya Kant Jena, Cardiologist at KIMS, Bhubaneswar, Odisha. Dr. Raghuraman, let's begin with you. Is the problem as complex as the name itself, dyslipidemia? What is this condition and how alarming is it?
Yeah. So basically dyslipidemia means abnormal lipid levels. So it essentially means that there are high levels of circulating cholesterol as well as triglycerides in the blood. We all know that when these levels are high, they are slowly but surely making their way into the arteries and damaging the arteries silently. The bad news is that they work so silently that they are totally asymptomatic. Most people are not even aware that they are forming blockages inside their arteries. Now, if you see the ICMR India Diabetes study, almost 81.2% of the Indian population has abnormal lipids. And the sad news is many of them are not even aware that their lipid profile is deranged. So I think we need a lot of awareness at a community level. A simple blood test can tell us regarding the lipid profile of the patient. And this goes a long way in ensuring that this deadly heart attack or this deadly buildup of plaque, which eventually sufficient action is taken at the right time. We all must understand that the most important thing here is that it is silently but surely progressing and choking the arteries. If you act sufficiently early, then you can definitely make a difference in preventing heart disease at the entire population level.
And Dr. Krutik Kulkarni, is it true that most Indians don't understand cholesterol at all? Because data says awareness is low, but the risk is high.
This knowledge gap is one which is a biggest enemy of the treatment of this disease or the prevention of heart disease per se. A shocking 82% of Indians showed poor knowledge about bad cholesterol or cholesterol related diseases in all over India survey. This indicates that in spite of such a high connectivity, such a high influence of social media, we are still underpenetrated as far as the information regarding the cholesterol goes. So this also delays the treatment and the management. Many of the patients don't know what a bad cholesterol numbers mean and how dangerous they can be. So the awareness is a key. Luckily for us, CSI, that is the Cardiological Society of India, has mandated that as early as at the age of 18 years, one can do a lipid profile and evaluate the risk. So this is very helpful in patients who have a family history of heart diseases or a family history of diabetes or family history of hypertension. In prevention of cardiac diseases in them, this is a very good step. That is getting a lipid profile as early as possible, as early as 18 years.
Well, that's true. And Dr. Surya Kant Jena, a very popular myth says, and I quote, "If I'm not fat, I can't have cholesterol issues." Is this myth really hurting people and how serious is it?
Yeah, definitely this is a misconception and it is quite widespread and it's actually quite dangerous. So as we say, if we are slim or if we are thin, we are healthy. It actually doesn't, it sounds good, but it's not true. So even if we are slim or thin, still we can have dyslipidemia or high lipid profile or abnormal cholesterol level. So, and more so Indians are suffering from this because of our genetics, because of our genes. And secondly, our diet is more rich in carbohydrates, or we take more carbohydrate refined diets. So it's better to control our lipid level and have a check on our diet.
That's right. And Dr. Raghuraman, it's better to be safe than sorry. Many people feel cholesterol is just a number, and some people even say that I have borderline cholesterol. But the studies say that these numbers predict the future, and high cholesterol today means high risk tomorrow. Why is it so dangerous? And what do you want to tell people who say my cholesterol is borderline?
Well, when people say it's just a number, yes, on paper it may be just a number, but actually what it's doing is it is shortening number of years from their lifespan. The sad news is that many of these patients have twice the level of the permissible lipids or the LDL values, and this unfortunately leads to a heart attack and kills the youth in the prime of life, wherein they are the sole breadwinner of the family or the sole earner of the family. So it's really important that they should take into account their LDL value. Another very important thing is many of the Indian patients or the population, if you see, many of them have high blood pressure, diabetes, stroke, and many other comorbidities. So like obesity. Now that added to lipids further doubles. Really important that though it is just a number, the number is actually double in terms of the events that can happen. So it's really important for them to make sure that their values are really within the limit. If you see triglycerides, the cutoff value that we would like to accept is 150, but most of the patients have more than 200, 36% more higher value. So also the LDL values. It is different for different situations in life. A simple thing is for diabetics, it should be much lower. Many of the diabetics think that whatever is shown in the lab on the right hand column is the value that they need to achieve. Not at all. For them, it's an entirely different set of LDL values that they should achieve. So these small tips go a long way in preventing catastrophic heart disease. So I think we should take a massive action at a population level to prevent such events, which are immensely preventable if you diagnose them early and put the proper measures in place.
That's right, and these numbers are really alarming. And Dr. Kulkarni, when patients finally get their test done, we just got a sense of what the numbers could look like. But what are the actual numbers? Because it feels like by the time we check, it's already high. So how do we avoid such a situation? And what are the parameters and numbers that people must be, wary about?
Yeah, absolutely, Deepak. That is a very good observation. The baseline numbers, that is the first time lipid profiles, they have been charted over most of the Indian population, and they are alarmingly high, and that is the cause of concern. But let us start with the most common what we know is LDL. That is, LDL is 100 milligram per DL is the upper limit. We normally see Indian, this one, the average is around 140.8 milligram per DL. That is nearly 40% more than the permissible higher limit. Whereas triglycerides, it is normally we expect it to be below 150 milligram per DL. But the average Indian, that is triglyceride level, when at the first is around 200.8, that is nearly 36% higher than the upper limit. Similarly, if we go to the total cholesterol, that is a very simple test and very the cheapest test to do. If you don't want to do a lipid profile, doing just a cholesterol is quite easy in the lab. So that level should be under 200 milligram per DL, but the Indian's average value is around 222.8, nearly 12 to 13% higher than the baseline limits. So if you take the total cholesterol profile, it will go up to from anywhere from 12 to 40% higher than the upper limits. So as far as Indian patients are concerned, it is easy to say that they are not only crossing the line, they are well beyond the dangerous limits in the dyslipidemia. And that also makes very important that we should start the treatment and the preventive aspects from day one. So their risk is quite high from day one.
That's right. And Dr. Surya Kant Jena, we just heard about, the permissible levels and also the danger mark. And we often hear the phrase, every mg of LDL matters when it comes to heart disease. For our Indian heart patients, especially those with blocked arteries or a history of heart attack, are they actually reaching safe cholesterol levels?
Yes, if I have to simplify for everyone who is watching here, so basically coronary artery disease is either narrowing or blocking of the blood vessels which supply blood to our heart. And as I said, or as we have already discussed, LDL, which is a component of the lipid profile, is actually quite high in our Indians. And the permissible level or the target goal for all those high risk patients who have heart disease is actually 55. In medical science, we say lower the better, but for the general people, we have to understand that less than 55 is our target. And as you said, every 1 milligram per deciliter matters. So even if there is slight increase, then we are not reaching our target. So we must consider this as important, and we must try to stick to the goal. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. So patient should take his medication properly and stick to the target.
Dr. Jena, just a follow-up question. We're getting in questions from our viewers as well. And one of the viewers is asking, is it true that stress alone can worsen cholesterol levels? And how does emotional stress impact, the lipid profile?
Yes. So basically, there are multiple factors for having heart attack. Conventional factors are, like we said, that patient may have sugar or diabetes or blood pressure or cholesterol or obesity. Even the stress, or we say there is a type A personality, these patients are at risk for having heart disease. And as we have discussed, slim or thin doesn't mean that we are healthy. Indians particularly, we are lean diabetic. That means we are diabetic patients where we are actually not obese, or we are not very physically built up. We actually have abdominal obesity. Cholesterol tends to deposit in our abdomen. So it's actually dangerous. And stress itself is one of the important risk factor which actually can cause heart attack. And this is one of the reason young people or the patients are presenting with heart attacks.
That's right. And Dr. Raghuraman, Dr. Sena just spoke about the genetics. How important is genetics and what role does it play, especially in India, because Indian genetics is more, vulnerable to cholesterol than the Western population. And doctor, we always hear about something called as lifestyle is medicine, but honestly, do people actually change their habits?
Yeah. So coming to the first question regarding the genetics, I feel that we have to be doubly careful as compared to the world population, because first of all, the average age of an Indian getting a heart attack is much younger than the world profile. The second thing is that the coronary arteries, or the arteries that supply blood to the heart, are much smaller in diameter in Indians as compared to the Western population. So this essentially means that we are at a very high risk for getting coronary artery disease. Most importantly, as you know, India is the diabetes capital of the world. So diabetes is highly prevalent, and whenever there is high cholesterol with diabetes, this is a double whammy, and it is very counterproductive for the patients. Also, genetically, we are much more susceptible to a cardiac event at a much younger age as compared to the older age. Now, coming to your second question regarding lifestyle, as I already told you, 80% of the population is not even aware that they have high cholesterol. And of those who are aware that they have high cholesterol, 60% do not even follow simple lifestyle measures like eating smart, that is a healthy diet, and also daily exercise. So it's really up to us, the fraternity, to emphasize how important lifestyle modification is. And I must say that many times when patients tell us that, it's probably easier to take a tablet and they wouldn't want to take the trouble to modify their lifestyle, all that they need to do is certain simple measures or steps, which goes a very long way in modifying their lipid profile. And tablets won't work unless lifestyle modification measures are in place. So we need to give them a holistic and comprehensive view of what their problem is and what are the solutions.
That's right, Dr. Raghuraman. And Dr. Kulkarni, you just heard Dr. Raghuraman. People these days, especially the newer generation, they prefer taste over nutrition. And along with that, one of the most shocking findings said that cholesterol medicines are stopped long before cholesterol control happens? And why do a whopping 87.3% of Indian patients discontinue therapy?
Yeah, this is a quite alarming fact that we Indians basically discontinue the medications much prematurely before the target is reached. So what happens in the many times in the from people's perspective, that the moment they start feeling better or the one report starts showing the cholesterol going down, they think that okay, let of the most of the I'll control with lifestyle medications, which they never kick in or which they never adhere to, and they stop the medications, which the cholesterol doesn't work like that. They think that it is temporary and after that we have to control everything by diet, but that doesn't work like that. The moment you stop medications, your risk goes back to normal, that is a higher risk, and the cholesterol goes on increasing. So this is the reason, this is what the premature stopping of the medication is one of the reasons that we get many of the younger individuals getting heart attacks, patients getting recurrent heart attacks and worsening of blockages and all. So to imagine, to simplify it and tell in an analogical way, it is like stopping the medication is like stopping the brake pedal, removing the leg from the brake pedal when you are going downhill. If you remove the leg from the brake pedal, you are absolutely going to crash. So that's how this works. So never stop medications when the treatment is underway without a consultation of your cardiologist or the doctor who is prescribed you the medicines in the first place.
That's right. And Dr. Kulkarni, we also have a question for you from one of our audience. Abhishek is asking that there's a misconception that home remedies like hot water, garlic or lemon can lower cholesterol. What would you like to tell Abhishek and also other viewers who are joining us at this moment?
There are many studies in the published in earlier days when we did not have many statin or many other anti-cholesterol medications that garlic would reduce or turmeric use could reduce the cholesterol, but they are shown that their action is minuscule. But when you are talking about the target-oriented cholesterol reduction, that is the person who is having a risk, you have assigned his risk, his family history of heart disease is there, or he's already having a heart disease, he has put a stent in them. In them, you cannot rely on such therapies which are of home remedy sort of things, which are not very much scientifically approved. Okay, they might help you in a certain way, but they are not as useful, as tentative enough that you can use them as a treatment per se. So my basic advice for such home remedy questions is straightforward. Use medicines as medicines and food as food. Don't try to use a food as a medicine just because you think that could help, or somebody else and has influenced you in saying to it that this will work in cholesterol. The number of percentage reduction of cholesterol is quite minuscule with those home remedies.
That's right. And before we go across to our audience, Dr. Surya Kant Jena, what actually happens inside the body when a patient stops their statin? Because patients think, if my report is normal now, I can stop. In fact, let me take this question to Dr. Raghuraman. Dr. Raghuraman, what actually happens inside the body of a patient when they stop their statin because they believe that if their report is normal now, then they can stop taking it?
Okay, so see Deepak, it is like this. There is an enzyme called as HMG-CoA reductase which is there in the liver, and this is primarily responsible for making cholesterol in the patient's own liver. Okay, this is there in all of us. And this value is largely genetically determined. That is the genes that we inherit. Now, there is about 60% to 70% of cholesterol production that we see in our bloodstream is produced within our own liver. Now, you would need, if the value that you have inherited, that is the HMG-CoA reductase levels that you have inherited is high, then you will need a tablet to control this value for life. Because if you stop that, the value, the enzyme level is not going to change. So it is going to continue to produce cholesterol again. In a matter of time, in 15 to 20 days or even in a month's time, your cholesterol levels will be back to where you started. So it's important that they have to take medicines for life. Along with that, concurrently, as I've already emphasized, lifestyle modification measures are of prime importance, because if they're able to achieve the target levels, then that's absolutely fine. So whether you achieve it by pure lifestyle modification measures or along with a tablet or statin, the target values, achieving the target values is the most important to prevent atherosclerotic coronary artery disease.
That's right. In fact, Dr. Raghuraman, we also have Abhishek, who is our audience. He is live with us. Yes, Abhishek, we have three of the specialists in cardiology who are speaking to us about cholesterol. Please go ahead with your question.
Sir, my question is from Dr. Bagirath. That, sir, nowadays many people have low HDL and high LDL. So low HDL is also equally dangerous like high LDL, or low LDL is not a cause of concern?
Yeah, so see, the first thing that you need to understand is that the LDL is the bad cholesterol, which leads to plaque formation, which leads to blockages, and high LDL to some extent is protective. And the only way that you can increase your HDL is by regular exercise. So of course, you need to maintain a healthy balance. Apart from your LDL values and your HDL values, the HDL-LDL ratio is the other important thing that you need to take into profile so that you can estimate your overall cardiac risk.
That's right. And Dr. Kulkarni, what actually, is very important at this point in time, because is dyslipidemia even more dangerous when combined with conditions like BP or even diabetes? Is this what we call the deadly duo?
Yeah, absolutely. That is, we call it as a high cardiometabolic burden. So patient has a diabetes, patient has a hypertension. So you have a perfect recipe for a coronary artery or in general atherosclerotic disaster. So this high cardiometabolic burden people, they are at a very high risk of developing a coronary artery disease, brain strokes, or peripheral arterial disease, or significant other issues due to high cholesterol. So if you have a high BP and diabetes, and your risk is automatically high for developing a coronary artery disease. To that you combine a high cholesterol, your risk becomes multifold. So controlling your cholesterol is one of the most important factor if you are a diabetic and hypertensive. So that is how you should take. And so in general, with you combine all these three with the one more important risk factor is the family history. If the family history is strong enough to have a coronary artery disease or atherosclerotic artery disease in general, so the total risk becomes multifold, and you need to progress with lifestyle modification and medical management.
That's right, and lifestyle is very, very important, and medical management also for those who are suffering with high levels of cholesterol. In fact, Dr. Surya Kant Jena, we often hear that heart health isn't built in hospitals but in daily routines. So what daily lifestyle habits truly help people control their cholesterol levels?
Yeah, exactly. As you said, heart health is not built in the hospital, but it's all about our lifestyle. And lifestyle actually means that you should have good food, which adapts to your body. So it's not about changing the food habits. Our body has evolved over 1 million of years. So there is a different food pattern, which the food which suits my body may not suit others. So it's all about having normal, good, home cooked food. And you should have regular exercise. Exercise doesn't mean that attending gym or doing some exercise in the morning 1 hour and evening 1 hour. Exercise is a continuous process. So all 24 hours a day, every time you are awake, you should be active. And then most important is stay away from bad habits like smoking, alcohol, and all those things. Even though people say red wine or alcohol is good and all, but there is a fine line between what is good and what is bad. And most important, as we have discussed and we tend to ignore, is the stress. So stress is something unseen, which every one of us have in day-to-day life. So we should try to avoid those things. So a healthy lifestyle in the form of good exercise, good food, staying healthy, and avoiding stress is important for a good, healthy heart.
That's right, and especially when the new generation is very, very susceptible to addiction when it comes to smoking and also drinking. This is a clear message for you all. Fix your lifestyle before it's too late. In fact, Dr. Raghuraman, we have interesting questions that are pouring in. We also have a question from Ankit. He's asking, Doctor, what are the hidden symptoms people mistake for acidity or gas that could actually be early signs related to cholesterol and heart attacks?
Yeah. So many times, oftentimes we have this problem wherein patients mistake their acidity symptoms or stomach discomfort as what is otherwise a cardiac event to be an acidity symptom or an indigestion. It's most important that we should not take this lightly, and every event needs to be investigated. We run through the battery of tests. We have a protocol in the hospital wherein we do the ECG, we do the echo, and we do a cardiac enzyme called as troponin I, which is available both as a spot test as well as a quantification test. Doesn't matter if there is there is an error of judgment on the part of the patient, but I think every event needs to be investigated. You never know when you'll miss a cardiac event, and probably that would make a difference of life and death for the patient. So every event to be taken seriously, every event to be investigated, never take things lightly. Of course, over a period of time, the judgment of the patient prevails, but it's important that you should not ignore such symptoms.
That's right, and symptoms are the precursors to an underlying problem which could probably be serious if you don't get it checked, and checking and prevention is more important than cure, because prevention can help you get away from even medication if you know your parameters well in advance. In fact, Dr. Kulkarni, we have questions coming in from different parts of the country as well. And this is a very important question because they're asking you, for people living in small towns or with limited access to specialists, what simple steps can they take to control cholesterol and also to avoid a very, very detrimental situation?
See, there are important lifestyle modifications which you should consider. First is most important thing is a diet. Diet, you should avoid all deep fried foods, the bakery items, the sweets, and all the savories which you think you can avoid as much as possible. And avoid eating from outside or reduce it to as much as possible, and try to use oils very less when you are cooking the food, and try to rotate the oils. There is nothing like one oil is too much superior and it will not cause cholesterol. It is nothing like that. All oils are equally they have their good points and they have their bad points. So try to rotate the oils on a monthly basis or so. So next is exercise. Nearly up to 30 to 40 minutes per day, at least 5 to 6 days a week. That is around 150 minutes per day of walking is more than enough for keeping your metabolic health in a standard way. But that is a bit of what I call a bit of a laziest of a recommendation. If you are a more younger, if you can afford to do a much better workout, so kindly do that. So you could do more than you can go up to 200 to 240 minutes per week. Or the simplest what I tell the patients is that is 5 a.m. 5 kilometers a day. 5 a.m. 5 kilometers 5 days a week is basic you should be doing if you are young and you are able to do it. Next, two other important things is a medicine. If some doctor has prescribed you a cholesterol medication, try to stick to that regimen to as faithfully as possible, and stop the medications only when the doctor advises you to. Next is even if your cholesterol comes normal or your treatment has been stopped, keep checking the cholesterol often, at least once in a year to once in a 2 year, depending upon your risk factor, which your doctor will be able to advise. Keep checking the cholesterol regularly. Just thinking that I won't check cholesterol, that means that everything is all right, will not work like that. So in general, the lifestyle modifications and the medications, they form a very strong bond in maintaining the heart health, and try to achieve that as much as possible.
Dr. Surya Kant, you just heard Dr. Kulkarni speaking about lifestyle changes and also about working out, which is very, very important. But some people take working out too seriously. And we've seen videos of youngsters collapsing while working out or even while indulging in sports. Are most of these incidents because of unchecked cholesterol, or is it because of something that's more than what meets the eye?
No, I think there is something more than what meets the eye. So it's when we see young people collapsing while doing exercise, it's not always actually cholesterol. There are other causes of sudden cardiac death. So there are patients have irregular heart beating, what we call as arrhythmia and other things and all. But people often, as you said, have queries that this patient was running on treadmill or he was a sports person and he died suddenly, so we should not exercise. No, it's a myth. So we should regularly exercise. So for a healthy lifestyle, we should eat healthy, we should exercise regularly, and we should have a sound sleep. Everyone should exercise, yes, moderate to severe intensity, you can do it. Very severe intensity depends on your prevailing heart condition or if you have some issues and all. But young people collapsing and all, they doesn't have actually cholesterol or other things, but probably their cause of death is something else.
That's right. And we also have more questions coming in from our audience. We have Pramod, who's asking that families often ignore cholesterol because they say that it runs in the family. Why is family history one of the most strongest predictions of high cholesterol levels?
Yeah, correct. Family, there are genetic causes of familial hypercholesterolemia. So it can run in family. But then we have to understand that we cannot change our genes. This is something we have to accept. I don't decide in which family I'm going to get born. So that's beyond my point. So what's important is, even if it's there and we have been diagnosed with certain condition, it's important to continue medication, continue healthy lifestyle, and other advices what we have been advised to do, so that we check the disease. So prevention is always better than cure. So things do run in genetics, but as I say, very little we can do about it. But what's in our hand, we should always try to change that.
That's right. And Dr. Kulkarni, medication is important, but what does change and improvement really look like medically? And is cholesterol really reversible?
Yes, absolutely. One of the beauty of this cholesterol issue is it is entirely preventable and entirely reversible. So if the patient adheres to medications, if he is prescribed medications, and if he adheres to dietary and lifestyle modifications, they usually, the cholesterol usually comes under control and it is reversible. Many of the patients who are very much strict and adamant on strict dietary and lifestyle modifications, I usually see that their cholesterol comes to control within at least matter of 1 month to 3 months. After that, if they stick to that lifestyle modifications continuously, they may not require cholesterol medications for rest of their life. One point here you need to remember here is the lifestyle modifications, that is the diet and exercise, are going to stay whether there is going to be a drug to treat his cholesterol or not. So if you make that pattern into your day-to-day life, that is reducing the high carbohydrate diets or deep fried foods and all, and exercising regularly, making it a habit which you don't change regularly, your total of the cholesterol related issues always come into contact, always come into control. In that way, you are better off living a better, healthier lifestyle. Then you are being thought that I have to take this medication, and you feel that burden of taking the medication. But the burden goes off the moment you adhere to a very strict dietary and lifestyle exercise regimen. So it is totally reversible and totally preventable.
Dr. Kulkarni, you spoke about carbohydrates. Is there such a thing called good carbs, bad carbs as far as cholesterol is concerned?
Especially the refined carbohydrates or the processed carbohydrates, what we call, so that we routinely see, which are being marketed all over the media. So they are the ones which are very much known to cause worsening of the LDL, that is the and triglyceride. So whatever processed carbohydrates which we routinely see, that is the maida containing or the sweets or the bakery items or the chips items which we routinely see, these are the ones which are very much a big culprit, which are fried in deep fried, which are a bigger culprit in worsening of the dyslipidemia and causation of the coronary artery disease.
That's right. And Dr. Surya Kant Jena, we have more and more questions coming in. Aarti, another audience, is asking, Doctor, we often, hear about LDL and HDL. Can you explain why LDL particle size matters today more than just the total number?
Yes, so basically when we say lipid profile, LDL and HDL are two components of those lipid profile. So LDL is actually low density lipoprotein, HDL is high density lipoprotein, or for layman, LDL is actually the bad cholesterol, HDL is actually the good cholesterol. So this low density lipoproteins or the LDL, these are the very small particles which actually go across the blood vessels and they get deposited. So it's like in household when we say the kitchen pipe from the sink gets blocked. So it's similarly they block off our blood vessels which supply blood to the heart. So this is the bad cholesterol. So if we have a check on this, the risk of having a heart attack is less. So there is nothing called zero. So it's like walking on the left side of the road. If I walk on the left side of the road, that doesn't mean that I won't meet with the accident, but it's all about reducing the risk. Similarly, if we have a good control or good check, or we are able to achieve a good target LDL, then obviously the risk of heart attack will be less. Similarly, if the HDL level is better, it also reduces, or it is a protective thing. It protects our heart from getting heart attack.
That's right. And several women are also joining us. Dr. Raghuraman, here's another woman, Sunita. She's asking, is it true that women after menopause are at a much higher risk of cholesterol-related heart diseases?
Yes. So generally in the age wherein they haven't yet attained menopause, the hormones that they have are to a certain extent protective. It of course doesn't that they can go off board in terms of lifestyle, but there is some amount of protection that they get from the hormones. But once they menopause, the risk equals to that of men. So obviously they need to be that much more careful. Lifestyle modification measures have to be in place. Another thing is that the osteoporosis sets in because of the declining hormones, so they need calcium supplements as well. So all these things have to be factored. So a very good question from Sunita, and the answer is that once the lady attains menopause, the risk equals to that of the man. So they'll have to take the same measures in terms of both dietary precautions as well as lifestyle modification measures.
And also Dr. Kulkarni, we've heard about so many, diets, especially the Gen Z believes in keto diet, vegan diet. What kind of diet is actually against cholesterol and which helps people control their cholesterol levels?
See, the basic premise here is the keto diet and all those diets, they are sort of more of a fad than they can be they can be regularly maintained. The maintenance of those diets for a lifelong is quite impossible. So we need to go focus on diets which are easily available at the local groceries, and we can adhere to it on a regular basis. The most common diet which we prescribe is a Mediterranean diet, which is full of lot of green leafy vegetables, and the foods that are very much very less processed and very much near to the earth, or the what we call it, the food from the farm to the plate directly, instead of some kind of processing that is involved in the food. So in general, we ask them to cut on the refined sugars, refined carbohydrates, and we ask them to take a more of a protein intake, and reduce the vegetable oils and the trans fats that usually occurs due to deep frying and all. So the diet which is rich in whole grains and rich in fresh vegetables and fresh fruits, and lean meat and very less deep fried foods and oils is a better one for maintaining a good cholesterol level.
That's right. And Dr. Surya Kant Jena, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoke about obesity. He has said that it is an epidemic. It's a major challenge for India. What message do you have for parents? Do you think that early checking and also diagnosis will really help us fight this epidemic?
Yeah, obviously, as you said, and as we have already discussed, the Indians are at risk of having heart attack 10 years earlier than the Western population. And as we said, obesity is definitely a problem, but our population are actually not very obese. Very obese in the sense we are actually lean people who tend to have diabetes more because of our genetics and because of our refined carbohydrate. I mean, our is basically a carbohydrate based diet. And as you said, basically early diagnosis is not the prevention. So basically, taking steps which will prevent the disease is technically a better thing than having a diagnosis. Mere doing the test and diagnosing the disease is not going to get us anywhere. So we have to understand that we need to have a healthy lifestyle, which is a continuous activity all throughout 24 hours, 365 days. We need to have healthy diet which suits our body. The locally sourced food, and as Dr. Kulkarni says, it is important to have a sustainable diet. It's not about having a fancy diet which we cannot maintain all throughout life. So everything has to be sustainable. So sustainable is an important word nowadays. So we need to have a diet which is healthy and better adaptable to our body and can be locally sourced. we should sleep sound. We should have a sound sleep. That's most important. Reduce stress and exercise regularly. And exercise regularly doesn't mean that we have to exercise few hours a day, but we should be active. The more important word is we have to be active all throughout the day. So that's important to prevent the disease. So prevention is better than cure. And we have to understand the language of our body and give time to our body. That's most important.
That's right. Giving time to our body, working out, all of this becomes very, very important to maintain your cholesterol levels. But Dr. Raghuraman, what about thyroid? Because many women are, have underlying thyroid conditions. How does, thyroid impact cholesterol levels?
Yes. So generally, if you see the first sign of hypothyroidism, oftentimes when we do the thyroid profile, we find that the triglycerides are deranged. And a simple thyroid test will reveal that it is actually the hypothyroidism that is causing this. The converse is also true, wherein hyperthyroidism increases the metabolic rate, and that again has its antecedent consequences. So it's really important to assess as part of the annual profile, the entire thyroid profile to be assessed in terms of the free T3 levels, the free T4 levels, as well as the TSH, so that you get a complete understanding of the patient's metabolism. As Dr. Jena correctly pointed out, that it is looking at the human body as a whole. You need to understand your own body, the mechanisms, what is really wrong and what can be set right. There are some variables that cannot be set right, but many of them can be set right by diet and lifestyle modification measures. If we focus on that, we can lead a much, much healthier lifestyle, and knowing our numbers is really important for that.
That's right. And Dr. Kulkarni, before we close, what is your message for India?
See, the message is very loud and very much clear that we have to start early. We are at a higher risk than rest of the world. We need to focus on maintaining a sustainable diet and the exercise regimen. So whenever medicine is prescribed, try to always adhere to the treatment as much as possible and try to reach the goals and don't stop the medications in between. And it is not, cholesterol is not just a 3 months project. It is a whole lifetime project. So once you get it corrected, it does not mean that it is not going to come back. So you need to make a smaller adjustments in your diet, smaller adjustments in your routine, smaller adjustment in your exercise, which will help you go a long way so that you have a sustainable way of maintaining your cholesterol under control. As Dr. Raghuraman told, the other factors like hypothyroidism or blood pressure or diabetes, they also need to be controlled so that overall a holistic approach towards the management of the cholesterol should be done instead of just tackling only the cholesterol. It is totally reducing the risk in an overall fashion is very much important. So the people usually say many people who are getting exercise and they are still having heart attacks. But one thing you remember, the patients who are exercising regularly, they have a very good fitness level. The chance that they withstanding that attack and coming out alive from that heart attack, which is probably an unfortunate event, is more likely for those who are fit. So exercise helps you to withstand that heart attack and coming out of it alive. So that is a very important point that we need to drill into the minds of people, that the basic exercise makes you fit enough to withstand any issues, including a heart attack. Okay, so that is one thing which we need to tell the patients. So as this one is very much clear from your tagline, that is समझदार बनो, सेहत के इशारे समझो. So the basic the smaller increase in cholesterol or the sugars, these are all initial signs, and take them seriously and work towards a goal that they are controlled and your health is to the paramount of your life.
That's right, Dr. Kulkarni. And as we wrap up today's conversation, viewers, one message stands out clearly. Your heart may stay silent, but the numbers on your cholesterol reports are speaking loud. Dyslipidemia does not choose age or even appearance, yet it is one of the few threats we can completely control if we act on time. And today's discussion reminded us that awareness, regular testing, medication adherence and simple lifestyle changes can prevent the tragedies we see far too often in Indian families. Your cholesterol levels are not just medical values, they are early warning signals from your heart. So a heartfelt thank you for our panelists, Dr. Bagirath Raghuraman, Dr. Krutik Kulkarni, and also Dr. Surya Kant Jena for guiding us with such clarity and compassion, and a special acknowledgement to USV, your reliable healthcare partner. Halt heart attack for this essential conversation. And to everyone watching, start paying attention, start taking action, and protect the heartbeat that protects your world. Stay informed, stay proactive, and take care of your heart.